Let's talk a bit about P.S. I Love You, your third series with Greg Evigan.
P.S. I Love You again was a timing show. Um, we had enjoyed great success with Quincy. As I said, you couldn't kill it with a stick. It went on and on and on and on. And people had a fascination with that arena. Uh, there were a series of books that were very prominent.
Are you talking about? I was asking about P.S. I Love You.
Oh,
Not West Waikiki.
oh,
I'm
excuse me.
sorry.
Excuse me. Can we start over?
Yeah.
Can you roll that
Yeah.
back? Because we haven't gotten into it yet.
So
God,
tell me a bit about
that
your
made
show.
me. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So tell me a bit about your show P.S. I Love You, your third series starring Greg Evigan.
P.S. I Love You is the show that I did the theme with Sheryl Crow, and basically about a witness protection program where they take a girl who they need to testify against someone pretty bad, and they want to stick her someplace where she's not going to be found, and we stuck her in Palm Springs, and Greg Evigan is her watchdog. And we got him involved with some work he was doing for a security agency down there while watching her when she wanted to help. You know, you're doing The Thin Man, or you're doing Mr. and Mrs. North. You're doing one of those boy-girl things with a lot of tension. They sort of hate each other but don't. Pretty cute show. Pretty cute show. When Howard Stringer and Jeff finished their first year at CBS, they came out to me at a party. They said, "You know, we only made one mistake this year. We canceled your show." Gee, that's. I'm so glad that you're willing to tell me that you only made one mistake, and it was me. And unfortunately, I'm taking my stars down with me, and and so forth and so on. They said, "Well, we'll make up for it. So come in, and we'll whatever you want to put on the air." Okay, so I go over there. And I tell them I want to do a forensic show in Hawaii. And there is a lady in Hawaii named Kathy DeAlwis who was number 2 coroner. I mean, there was a political officer, but she was the one who did the real work. And from Micronesia or something, she's a fascinating character. And you really have someone that you could use as a real life prototype. And they said, "Great, we'll do that." And we cast Cheryl Ladd and Richard Burgi. And Cheryl Ladd and Richard Burgi are make a pretty good team. Cheryl came with a potential liability. She's a star, but would people take her seriously as a scientist? She turned out to be very strong and very good in the role. CBS, Jeff Sagansky leaves the network right in the middle of the pilot, and so it's like one of those things where you're cut adrift, and because we had a personal relationship, he's the first. I sold him his first hit, Knight Rider, when he was at NBC, and he kind of alienated the rest of the staff because he'd take meetings with me alone, and they would sort of feel left out of the loop. The day he announced he was leaving. Boy, did we get a cold reception on the pilot. And he said, "Look, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to try. I'll get you on the air during the summer, so you'll get a sample." Well, we got a halfway decent sample, but he was gone. They weren't going to pick it up. So Reicher stepped in, and they moved it over to the Tribune Broadcasting.
First run syndication.
Yeah. Who put it on at 2 and 3 in the morning every night. And my mother had never told me she liked any of my shows in my whole life. And she said, "That's the best show you ever." I love that show. That takes in a few shows, so it's like, and Richard Burgi's a terrific actor. He's a wonderful, he reminds me of Bruce Willis, it's that kind of guy. And I don't know if they they didn't give Cheryl the shot she deserved. Or it was just that that time slot was going to be impossible. We thought they were going to pick it up at the last minute. There were changes going on at Reicher, and they didn't. So that's a show that CBS takes it off, but less than a year later they come back on with CSI, and which began a string of hits for them, all based on the same arena, forensics. Albeit those shows are very well done, and they're done very procedurally, probably a little less personality. But we did stuff with Cheryl, getting a drunk driving thing, and I mean, it was pretty serious stuff. We lost it, and they took it off, and one more in that column.
And then there was Nightman, which was your first, I think, original foray into first-run syndication.
Did that with Tribune. 3 companies got together, Australian, French, and Tribune. My friend Knight Rider came in and did a surprise cameo as the Heavy, and it was based on a comic book, which was sort of a sort of Batman type of show. We liked it. It was a musician who had certain talents and things, so we thought, and we'd never tried syndication, and we thought it would be fun to get it and give it a shot. The first season worked very well, but our French partner went through a whole litany of changes. I don't know what happened. They fired their president. They did something else. And suddenly, we had to have a Canadian partner come in and take the place of the French partner. Under the proviso, they'd leave it shooting in the United States, wouldn't take it to Canada and insist, but they did. And when they took it to Canada, we had to change the whole cast, and possibly good show again. So you start accumulating a list here, and it's like, all the good luck you've had on all these shows and all the breaks. Maybe you're not getting them. Maybe you're making bad choices. Maybe you're making bad shows. I don't think so. But again, you talk about bench strength. You talk about casting, who you get, who you don't get. I can't be unhappy about any of this good luck or bad luck. It's the luck of the draw sometimes, and there are changing climates. If I fail to perceive some of them, I wasn't alone. People, bought into these shows, and
Well, in some cases, you're ahead of your time with Trauma Center, One West Waikiki, just like you said, timing.
yeah, it is. It's a combination of things. Then too, if you've got a really hot hand, it's much easier to sell, and it's much easier to talk them into. I will say this. I didn't appreciate as much the real solid team I had at Universal in terms of the executive suite until I didn't have them. Because they were good at going in and switching things around. Let's move the time slot. Let's not just cancel the show. Let's give it another shot. And the networks, if I fall into the category of doing shows that might be considered, quote, a nasty word, commercial, they're not as patient as they might be with some shows that they'll give 3 changes of time slot and maybe 2 years of playing with. And Bochco was very fortunate on one of his first shows that they gave it so much time at NBC, and rightfully so, because eventually Hill Street, it took a lot before the audience found it and got it. And I think that they sometimes sell short some of the shows that might be considered more of a bullshit premise or whatever.
You mentioned before, I don't know, it was the royal we or an actual we. When you said we tried this, we tried that, were you talking about yourself, or do you have a core team that you've brought with you to each of these projects that you still...
Well, you're never alone on any of these projects. I mean, there's always people with you, either at the network, at the studio, or the actors that are in it, or I don't write alone. I always have people around me. But there hasn't been a real core team that, I would say, over a period of years, I've always had, this group. I mean, I move into a studio like Fox, and I inherit their system. I have to get used to it and then learn to work within it. And sometimes you don't know that they don't have people filling the same kinds of jobs. It used to be a great experience to watch Frank Price's unit go into New York and handle how they'd handle the networks. And this head of research would be having dinner with their head of research and this and this. And I mean, it was a ballet, and it was beautifully done. And later, Kerry McCluggage learned all those. When I talked about tricks I learned as a producer, there are tricks in the executive suite you learn. And Kerry moved from Universal to Paramount, he brought that mentality with him and brought enormous success to Paramount with all, in particular, Glen had followed him over there, and a number of other executives followed him over there. And they ran it in the same kind of a precision, well-organized, well-oiled machine. It's tough enough for us to do what we're doing in the trenches. You know, I've always considered myself, this may sound a little lofty, but I mean, I consider myself a field commander like Patton, not a politician like Eisenhower or some of those guys. And if you need those guys to fight those battles for you.
So you didn't negotiate your own production deals. You had the Fox or Universal.
No, I'd Skip Brittenham would handle the production deals. When it came to hiring actors and things, you'd always get into business affairs of the studio, and sometimes their approach to negotiations can be rather humorous. You know, it's like or ugly. It's you're dealing with manpower that you inherit. The important thing is not to lose faith because something does go wrong, because around the corner is usually some good luck of some kind if you stay with it and push.
Now you mentioned the Knight Rider movie, the Battlestar Galactica movie. What are some of the other things you have in the hopper that you're working on now?
Well, we're very fortunate in one regard, and that is some of these ideas have stuck in the psyche or the entertainment patterns of the audience, so that there's a demand for some of these shows that we've done before. We've had Magnum PI under development by Imagine, which is Ron Howard and Brian Grazer's company. We're in negotiation with Universal for the feature for Battlestar now that they're finished with their current incarnation of television. Knight Rider is with the Weinsteins. All of Hollywood is having its own problems financially right now today, so you don't know exactly where they're going. But I've always loved television and broadcasting. Many opportunities in features through Frank Price and some of the people I've worked with. You know, he came to depend on me a lot. And I mean, if I wanted to do something bad, Frank would let me write, produce, direct. I would still walk away from deals and in order to pursue television deals. It's my commitment to TV and my success in TV that's made me so leery. First of all, movies is more of a director's medium. They depend more upon a director to tell them which way they're going to go than they do a producer or a writer. You wind up with, a masthead of writers on scripts, and I don't know if that's the best procedure. And I haven't licked it yet. I haven't quite decided how to handle it because I've not been happy with the way that's proceeded, except for the demand and the fact that there's gold in them thar hills, but I don't know how much satisfaction there is because you get a note that says you don't understand Knight Rider, it's not the Lone Ranger. Well, I'm sorry, but you don't understand Knight Rider. It is the Lone Ranger, and you're into the cat chasing its own tail. It's tough. So I sit here undergoing a new experience, dealing with studios and committees and trying to figure out who's right and how you go forward.
What would you say, looking back on your TV career, that was your proudest achievement? What you're most proud of? I'm proudest of the fact that I fell in step with an audience taste level that I knew how to judge and maybe deliver for, and consistently. It wasn't a one shot. It wasn't a lucky this or that. That there's a consistent body of work here that has some symmetry to it in terms of why it worked and how it worked, and it was never a one shot. And it's
with the possible exception of the last hour or so of looking at these last shows and saying, these aren't going so well. There's nothing that could dent my enthusiasm for how much fun it's been to do this that the audience seems to have enjoyed and enjoyed a lot. So that I'm proudest of the fact that I've been able to do it in the music business. I've been able to do it in television. I'd still like to say maybe I could do it in films. I don't know whether that'll be true in my lifetime. That's a tough business.
What's your biggest professional regret?
Not being able to save a couple of the things that I really thought were worth saving. I mean, losing Battlestar was a big loss to me because it really deserved better. But we've examined those things. I don't have too many very painful experiences in the business. The relationships that I've garnered over the years have been pretty special, and they've stayed pretty close. I know that you personally know Michael Gleason, and we remain just the closest of friends. And the times we enjoyed in New York, other than trying to get him killed by the captain who wore two 6-guns on his belt, but we so enjoyed those experiences along the way. And I guess part of it is that I'm very proud of the fact that a writer, or someone who, and you only announce that you're a writer, there's nobody pronounces that you are a writer, with no contacts in the business, no nepotism, no one that was going to give me any special favors or anything, was able to carve out this body of work based pretty much on that typewriter. Once in a while, a yellow legal pad. I'm proud of that. But I'm also proud of the fact that it should set an example for writers in general. I don't know that the Writers Guild per se, especially the body at large, really appreciates how much the Michael Gleasons and the Bochcos and the Cannells have really done for writers to establish that you don't really need anything but you, and if you work hard enough and really do it, you'll win.
Picking up on that, what advice would you have for a writer who's just starting out today?
Write. I have a couple of kids of my own, and they have the same problems any other kid will have starting out. They're not sure what they should write, and boy, I have fits sometimes talking to them about my notes or whatever else. The most important thing is to write. You just have to get in there and do it, and don't be afraid to submit stuff on spec or try to get that meeting. To be relentless is the number one thing. To have drive. It ain't going to come to you, except rarely. You really have to push. And I'm not cynical about people trying to steal your ideas and things. I mean, we all know that there are people who are victims of very poor memory. That go from your meeting to another meeting and come up with something you just pitched them. That's happened to me. But I don't think that's the rule. I think that's the exception. It is tough sometimes when you're dealing with people that you think maybe really don't have a grasp on your point of view or what's really good and so forth. But you win if you're there. Frank Price used to say, "You can't win if you're not there." And I used to love that advice. He also had a great one that is, "Don't get mad, get even." And he used it throughout his career.
Are your children in the business? You mentioned they're writing some of the.
My youngest is just graduated Berkeley, and she was working as a reader of all things for one of the production companies, and is in the last few months been working in casting on Cold Case. And this week, for the first time, they're doing 2 episodes simultaneously, so they've actually hired her to do that job. And she's enjoying that process now of figuring out where she wants to be. She took communications. I have another daughter who wants to act. She's having the same kind of problems other people have, with agents and this and that. One of my sons has finished his 3rd script. James works for me and also writes. We have a few gifted writers in the family.
You mentioned you're Mormon. Has your religion played a role in how you've shaped your stories or seen television or pursued your career?
I don't write to propagandize or to sell a point of view. I've probably avoided some subject matter and things because I really just don't want to be identified with it. And I would say that there are times when I've let some of my basic beliefs influence how I characterized a few things. Even in Battlestar, in particular, there were some issues of where I might have paraphrased a few phrases which I think are not inconsistent with logic. One of the phrases was, "The glory of God is intelligence. The glory of the universe is intelligence." I come away with all kinds of interesting perspectives on how this whole thing works, and I look forward to having some more chances to play with those things. This is a business where you must worship growth and discovery. You mustn't stop and just say, "I've done it. That's all I need to do," or "I'm not going to look for some new paths and to carve." And I'm looking forward right now to solving some of these problems, maybe with Battlestar, but it's going to be a handful.
Where do you see the future of TV? I mean, it's a turbulent time right now for the medium.
That's a question it's over my head right now. I'm extraordinarily worried that our unions, our leaders, have made some serious mistakes when it comes to not paying attention to what happened to the record industry, when it comes to protecting rights and all of the downloads and all of the. We've always depended upon selling shows to an aftermarket because it's so expensive to make a profit when you're first making them. And if you start knocking out those markets where you have no place to take those shows to sell them because they've given them away, I don't know how many times a week they run Knight Rider, but it's on several times here and there and then. It's like I don't know where that's going, and I'm fearful of it. It's no one wants to see any more strikes than they have to, but a lot of the studios are very short-sighted when they make deals that when they themselves could get out and earn the better living or be on the other side of the camera, they may be eliminating the profit or the goose that lays the golden egg. I'm fearful of it. It may work out great, but right at this moment, I've watched what happened to the record industry, and there aren't any Tower Records to go to anymore or any of these places. Now, some of it could be replaced by computer buying, but what they're going to do with our shows is critical. Maybe I was there during the golden era, and it isn't going to be like that anymore. I don't know.
Do you think it's possible today for there to be another Glen Larson or Steve Cannell with the number of shows that you had on the air and the kind of influence you had on 3 separate networks?
That's a tough question. I had to give a speech once, and we had to add up some numbers, and I think I'm right, but I could be off by a little bit. But I think there was a period of time where we had no less than 4 hours in prime time for 10 straight years. 4 hours spread across the networks, 3 networks. That's tough. And when you talk about being proud, I am talking about that kind of body of work and achievement, to be able to have that much going on. And of course, I wasn't doing all those at once. Once I went to Fox, I wasn't running Quincy anymore. But those shows continued to go. So to be able to have that kind of a block, I don't know if that's possible. Nor may it be profitable anymore. I don't know where they're going to go or how they're going to go, because there's nobody out there smart enough to make this game plan for us.
Well, is there anything I haven't asked that you'd like to mention?
No, I enjoy the process, and I welcome the opportunity to put some of these thoughts down. If in trying to compress, I mean, I think I started around '69 at Universal, and in trying to, I challenge anybody to try to straighten out some of the dates and exactly what happened when. But it's a great ride, you know. It's more than an e-ride, and it's a good business, and I encourage people to have the courage to stick with it. And I do speak once in a while at universities and things, and the most you can do is say, decide what you want to do, and you have a chance to do it. Most of all, it's commitment. You got to decide what you want to do.
Well, thank you very much for your time.